Okay, Taylor, a while ago we got a very sweet letter from you, and I've been meaning to return in kind. You can see it hanging right here on the fridge. It really means a lot to me and Milena that you sent that out for me, and I have been thinking of what's the best way to respond to that. Now, I could write you a letter, which I'm totally down with doing, but I also want to help you out as much as I can. And I know cooking is something that you've been wanting to get into, so I've gotten something that's pretty simple for you. And all it is a chicken dish with potatoes and stewed carrots. And since my tripod kind of doesn't exist right now, it is lost somewhere in an old closet gathering dust, and the one that I bought for my desk is hot garbage. I'll just be doing this in little steps, but you know how to use a knife, so I'm going to be skipping some of that stuff that requires me to have two hands at the ready. So it might be a little chopped up, but it's really simple, and we'll get you going with everything. So that's it. Blackened chicken, roast potatoes, maple glazed carrots. Get ready. Here it comes. Alright, so the first thing I've got to ready are my potatoes. Since me and Milena really love these, I usually get 3 decent sized ones. This one has eyes on it, doesn't mean it's bad. You just pop that right off. No worries, I could do it better with 2 hands. But it doesn't mean anything. Go ahead and get that off. These are root vegetables, they will grow roots, doesn't mean it's bad. If it starts squishing when you touch it, like it feels really old and wrinkly, that might be a signal that you might not want to do that, but these are perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to show you one of my top secret ingredients to making oven roasted potatoes, and this is actually one of the coolest things, the most delicious things that have come out texture-wise. I've got a pot of water boiling. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're roasting potatoes. Why are you going to boil water first and boil them in the water first? Well, first of all, we want to go ahead and get some of those starches off of it, and we want to make it all nice and fluffy, almost like we're making a mashed potato out of it. And that way, when we put it in the oven, it will crisp up so much nicer, and the insides will be fluffier. So let's go ahead and cut them up. Don't be too small with them. The chunks are pretty cool. Drop them in the water, and you'll notice it's on full boil. When they start boiling really heavy, you're just going to walk away from them. Go play a video game. Really, you just want these to cook as much as possible. For the purposes of this video and timing things out though, you'll notice that my clock is at a very nice, sexy number of 5:55. So this is when it started boiling, at 5:55. So we'll come back and check when it is. But ideally, you do not want to take it off the boil and drain it until these potatoes are really fluffy and almost falling apart. So I guess it's a Jamie Oliver quote. The secret to perfect fries is to boil the potatoes as long as you dare. So, Taylor, let me ask you, how long do you dare? Alright, so it's now almost a full 15 minutes later, so I'm looking at the boil. I can see some of the starch is kind of burning on the side there. Not bad. It's going to be easy to clean up once I'm kind of getting with it. But I went ahead and took one of the potatoes out and put it over here, so we could test it out. Now, the real test is to make sure that it's basically falling apart. I don't want it to be hard or have any resistance to it whatsoever. And the big test, if I just kind of hit it right here, see that it just kind of cuts through it like butter. That is the perfect fluffiness. And now what I'm going to do is shut off the heat. Gently empty those suckers into a strainer so they don't break up any further. I'm going to pour some big old glugs of olive oil into a roasting pan that I have lined with parchment paper. Now the parchment paper is optional, but it does help you on the cleanup. But you want to make sure there's lots and lots of oil to kind of keep it from help it crisp up and stuff. All right. Then you want to gently pour them on the roasting pan and shake them till they spread out. Like if you see anything overlapping each other, you want to go ahead and maybe manually pick them up with the tongs and move them around, just so you get maximum surface area exposure to the heat inside the oven. Oh, but wait, we haven't turned the oven on yet, but that's okay. That'll give us some time to kind of work with that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set my oven. I'm going to roast 450. Press start, And that should give us enough time to kind of sort these out. And even if it's not completely ready at 450, it's okay just to pop them in there. If anything, it's just going to, yeah, nothing's going to happen from it. You're not going to have any love lost from it. Don't think that you have to put it in at the exact time. It will be fine. All right, so I'm back, and I made sure everything was spread out. And I don't know if you can tell from here, but from that last time I was recording, I went ahead and flipped them all over. That skin that I left on is very structurally sound, so I don't have to worry about that needing to be crisped up for it to kind of hold its integrity. But all the other stuff, you see how fluffy it is, how it's breaking apart. You want that to be exposed more than anything to the heat, so that crisps up as much as it can, all right? And don't worry about it burning just yet, because we will kind of be adding a little bit more oil to it as we need to and flipping them over. Now, honestly, probably the easiest way to make them is to buy yourself a fryer and just dump them in. It'll only take a couple minutes. But if you don't have a fryer, this is the best way to do it. And to my knowledge, you do not have a fryer. But if you want to grab a fryer, it doesn't take a lot. Just go ahead and get yourself a small one. They sell like $20 ones over at Walmart. So I'm looking up here. Temperature is still at 175. I don't give a shit. I'm going to go ahead and just pop that right in. Don't need any seasoning on it, because once they crisp up, we'll be able to toss them with whatever seasoning we want to, and it will hold and be very, very delicious. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and start prepping up some of the other stuff we will be using. So while the potatoes are roasting, what I'm going to do is take some carrots, whole carrots, and I'm going to wash them. Give the stems the old Halo one-shot. Give those stems the old Halo headshot. And then we're going to give them a rough cut. You'll see that some of them I even left whole, like some of the thinner pieces, but some of the really, really wide pieces I went ahead and cut up into halves. And some of them you can see I even did into quarters. It's really up to you. Another thing that's up to you is if you don't want to have the skins on. I know a lot of people don't like the skins. I personally love them, because when carrots get stewed, they get really, really mushy. And the skin, just like with the potatoes, kind of helps it keep its structural integrity, and also gives a little bit of texture to them. That, and I think it's super fucking wasteful that people just skin their carrots and throw it away. You're missing like so much of the carrot doing that. This is so much better, and it saves you a lot more time. I highly recommend just going ahead and just cutting them up just like that. Alright, now remember when I said before that this is totally optional, but I recommend you get one. But you know what? Your life isn't going to be any different if you don't have one. Well, there's one thing I want you to get. And it doesn't cost you a lot, but it will definitely help everything out as far as cooking goes. And that is a rice cooker. This one's a fancy one. I actually upgraded this one, got it for free from my mom. She was throwing it away. But before that, I had a very, very small little half squat one that I picked up for like 15 bucks from Walmart. Or just, you can get them from Amazon. You can get them really anywhere. Go to Goodwill or the Humane Society store. They probably got some stuff right there. But I've got that. And what I like about this one, too, is it comes with a steaming rack. I'm not going to steam anything today, but this is still really cool to have and very useful. So I'm going to take this pot right here. I'm going to fill it just a little bit with water. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to grab these carrots. Hopefully I don't drop any of them. Put them straight into the pot. Look at that coordination. And really, I don't want to have the water go over the carrots. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm recording and doing this at the same time. I should have put the carrots in first. But really, I just want some moisture at the bottom there. It will steam off as it cooks. And I'll go ahead and put that right back in here as we go ahead and ready our other ingredients. Alright, so here are the other ingredients we're going to use for this recipe, and aside from the maple syrup, everything is going to go in right as we start the stewing process. We got pepper, we've got salt, we've got minced garlic, and we've got one of my favorite little things to have on hand, ginger in brine. You can pick this up from an Asian market. They might have it in the regular supermarket too that you can have. And sure, you can make this with fresh garlic, but stuff that's like stewed a lot, you can get a good intense flavor without having to do a lot of work if you just go ahead and just get the minced garlic. This only cost me like $4 over at Ollie's. And the other stuff you're just going to kind of do to taste and eyeball it. I've already got some of the stuff in here, and don't think because it's a measuring cup, I measured this stuff out. I really just eyeballed it. It was like a scoop of garlic and then just as much ginger as will fit on a fork. Really, really good thing to keep in mind is that ginger, garlic, and carrots go really super well together. So I'm going to go ahead and dump those in. I'm going to give it a nice stir, and these hands are clean. Then, I'm going to wipe my hand off on my shorts, all the garlic and stuff. You know, it's kind of nasty, but whatever. Salt, some pepper. Don't be stingy with it. Pepper's cool. And also, you want to get some salt going in here. Also, don't be stingy with the salt, but remember, you can always add more later. You just can't take any of it away. You'll just kind of have to dilute the flavor. But it's okay, we just do that much. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. And I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to set it for white rice. Like I said, you can use any rice cooker for this one. The white rice is made to cook white rice, but it's a multitasker. If you need to stew anything real quick, this is the easiest way to stew it at a constant temperature. And yeah, this will do the trick for you, man. Alright, so now that we've got those carrots cooking, we're going to wait till that one cycle is finished, and I'll show you what kind of goes on with that. But it usually takes a little while for the one cycle to finish. And I'm going to go check on these potatoes. You'll see that they're starting to brown up nice. Let's go ahead and take them out. I know if I leave my oven open for any period of time, my smoke detector starts going off. So hopefully that doesn't happen right here. But I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to start flipping them over. We're not going to season them yet, but even as I move them, you can see that they're starting to stiffen up. You can even hear how rough they're feeling against that, which is good. We got that nice crunch going on, but they're not done yet. Get all of them exposed to that oil. Move them around. None of them are breaking up. That is perfect. Get them spread back out again. And during this time, if you notice that it's getting really, really dry, you might want to go ahead and put some more oil down. Now, I'm looking and I'm seeing that there's still plenty of oil on there, so I don't really have to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my oven mitt back on. One-handed. Go! Open up. Pop them back in. I'm going to forget about them for a little bit longer. It might be like another half hour before they're finished. Now, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is start prepping up my chicken. Now, this is the last step of everything because the chicken takes the quickest to cook. That's the thing I'm going to save for the last, but we're not actually going to start cooking it yet. Ah, son of a bitch! Alright, so as I said, we're not going to start cooking these up yet, but what we want to do, especially with these, because they were frozen before, so I got them in big bulk packs, which you can totally do. If you get like a Sam's Club or BJ's membership, or even if you just buy a bunch of chicken at once, it's okay to pop them in a Ziploc bag and start freezing them up. Pro tip though, you want to make sure that they're cold from the fridge before you put them in there to kind of keep it from building up ice crystals and promoting freezer burn. But all this shiny stuff, I'm going to get rid of. No moisture before we do it because I'm going to season these up in advance of cooking them. So here we go with a paper towel. Start patting them dry. Pat until they're getting sticky. The sheen dies from them. You see the life die from their skin. I want to say that's good. I can't tell through the camera. And I'll flip these over. You see that I've got a paper towel underneath them too, so even when I flip them over, it'll still catch that moisture and won't get them as wet as they would if they were just exposed straight to a porcelain plate. And then let's go ahead and pat these dry right here. Wunderbar. Now what I'm going to do for seasoning on both sides, I'm going to take a little bit of salt. And I'm also going to take some blackening seasoning. Now this blackening seasoning that I have right here is pretty tasty. Doesn't have a lot of salt in it, which is why I've got the other salt in. The way we're going to be cooking it, we're going to be basically pan-searing it before we finish it off in the oven. And a lot of times when you make it in a pan and sear it off in a pan, you lose some of the seasoning and the salt. And in fact, that's what we're kind of counting on because we're going to be using that to make a little bit of a makeshift sauce for us. So don't be shy with the seasoning. So I'm going to take this. Oh, God, help me. I really don't want to. Oh, this is so awkward. I don't even think most of that got on the chicken. There we go. Whew. This is so much tougher than it looks on TV. Then I'm going to take this and do it. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to pause. I'll come back and show you what it should look like. All right, there we go. That's delicious. That's nice and caked on. Don't be afraid of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip them and do the exact same thing. All right, there we go. There's the other side all done up. You can see it's seasoned on both sides. You can also kind of pat it around the edges too, but I'm not being too fancy today. And we're just going to let that sit. Now, the reason I put the salt on first, because the salt kind of draws out the moisture of the chicken. And also, when it draws it out, it kind of creates a sponge effect where it kind of pulls in all the other flavors around it. So what we're seeing is all those spices, we're going to see some of the... Over time, you're going to see it start getting a wet appearance to it, and that is cool because that means it's starting to gel with the chicken. Again, we're not going to do anything with this just yet. We still have plenty of time on the potatoes, and we still have plenty of time on the carrots because we still have to put those on for 2 cycles. And when we come back, we're going to go ahead and show you how to get all this stuff done. Now, quick note, if you didn't want thick cuts of chicken like this, you could have filleted them straight down the middle, have thinner slices, and then you'd want to use less seasoning. I'm being less precious with my seasoning just because they're thick slices. But if they're thin slices, don't fuck with it. Just go ahead, get yourself a little bit of salt, a little bit of that, and you can always add more stuff to it. But whatever, they're big boys. We can go ahead and load them up. All right, so while that stuff is sitting, it gives you time to go around and clean up and get some things set up. I basically emptied everything out of my sink except for this bowl, which is basically just the thawing bowl that I use, so it's not going to take too long to get. But also, I noticed that earlier I was out of olive oil, so I went ahead and topped off. One thing that you might want to get yourself, olive oil is actually really good to cook with, and it gives a lot of flavor to it. But if you're using it in bulk, it could go pretty quickly. I like to keep a big old thing of this underneath so I could top it off whenever I want to. So I basically just got one of these from Publix, buy one, get one. And then I got one of these big hunkas and I just keep topping it off. And it usually lasts me about like 5 or 6 top offs. But right now I'm starting to notice that my chickens is starting to get that darker look to it that comes when it gets wet and those seasonings are starting to set and everything's going with it. So I'm going to take my pan. Now I'm going to use a iron skillet. If you don't have an iron skillet, it's okay. You can use whatever pan you want to use, but the iron skillet's really cool because it holds its heat a lot better, so it retains it a lot better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set mine up to about like just below blazing hot heat, just to get it nice and hot before I put some oil in it and let it rip. And also, my character's still cooking. The first cycle isn't done yet. I'm thinking this cycle's lasting a lot longer than I remember it. I might only just do 1 cycle and just kind of figure something out with the second one. And then I'm going to check on my potatoes. And boy, howdy, do those things look delicious. You just saw that flare up there. All right. I'm going to take these out. Set these aside. They got a good color to them. That is perfect. Son of a bitch. I hate you, smoke detector. Alright, so as I was saying, I brought these out. You can see it looks just on the south side of burn, but it has some really good color. I guarantee you on the inside of this is nice and fluffy. Like I said, for more consistent cook, you can always get yourself a fryer and put those in there. It doesn't take quite as long, but this is a good dish that you can just kind of put in and forget about it. I'm going to let these sit for a little bit because, you know, we'll kind of work it out. I left the heat still on 450. Now what I'm going to do is to go ahead and drop this down to about 350. Sounds about good because I don't want to overcook my chicken. Now yes, I said that I was starting off in a pan. We're going to be finishing in the oven, and the reason for that is we don't want our thick pieces of chicken to dry out and overcook just because we're putting it here. We're basically putting it in the pan just to kind of get a lot of that sauce going. And then after we get a good sear on both sides, we're going to hop it in the oven to finish off. So that way it retains its juices. Now, if everything goes as planned, we will have delicious potatoes that are still got a little bit of heat to them and still retain their crunch. We will have carrots that still have their last little leg to get working on, but they're really close. And we will have delicious chicken for dinner. So while this heats up, might take a minute or two. Like I said, it retains a lot of heat, but problem with that is it usually takes a while for it to heat up also. I'm going to just kind of let that wait for a little bit until it looks really piping hot. Alright, so the pot wasn't heat up, the pan's not heated up yet, so I'm not going to put that in there, but I did check over with the carrots, and I noticed that was running low on water, and I actually added just a little bit of it off camera. But now is the perfect time to introduce our maple syrup. Now, ideally, I make this with brown sugar. Brown sugar has a lot of sweetness and a lot of flavor to it, but maple seems to go really well with it. I don't have a lot left in there, so I'm just going to go ahead and let it rip. And give it a stir. Just going to let it cook for a little bit longer, okay? You want that maple to really get in there. And this by no means is the last thing we're going to be doing with these, because as soon as we finish with our chicken, we're going to be putting all those drippings and pan sauces straight into here to give it a little bit more flavor. That's already tasting really good. Alright, so here we go. We got our pan. It looks like it's really hot. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure the bottom of this pan is absolutely covered with oil. This might not even be enough, but the way you know if it's hot enough is if the oil pretty much moves like water in there. There's no resistance. It's not. That means that it's at a decent temperature. You can see it start smoking a little bit. That's called the smoke point. Apparently this doesn't really mean anything. It just means that olive oil has a little bit of water in it. So that's just water kind of steaming off, but you don't want to let it go too far. So I'm going to go ahead and take my chicken. If I want it to be really, really sanitary about it, I would use my tongs. And I especially want to be sanitary about it because I'm operating a camera. Usually I don't care. Put that in, you get that nice sizzle. I try to angle the thicker parts toward the center and the thinner ends toward the outside, basically because even though it does retain heat pretty evenly, this iron skillet, there's no real guarantee. There's still going to be a little unevenly skewed towards the center. So I'm going to let that cook for a little bit, maybe a couple minutes on this side. Alright, so it's been a good 3 to 4 minutes on medium-high heat, and you can see the chicken start pulling in on itself and start firming up. So what I'm going to do is flip these bad boys over. That's a nicer color. Oh yeah, that looks delicious. Boom! Oh yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that you have your thicker pieces kind of centered toward the middle. Add a little bit more oil if you need to. It'll just help it a little bit more. Now, you want to go ahead and not even let it cook too much more on this oven. If you have a pan that doesn't retain heat a lot more, then it's okay if you let it sit on the oven top for a little bit longer. But like I said, this thing is holding heat like a beast. So I'm okay, and I feel comfortable that it's going to get a good sear on it going the other way. So I'm going to open up, get this in. I'm going to let it sit for a while. Turn it off. Boom. Alright, now this is the time you usually use to clean up. So what I did was I took my cutting board and I put it in the sink, but not before. I took some of that seasoning and I introduced it back to my carrots. Now, I know before I said that the white rice setting is what you want to put it on. And you can totally do that. It's fine. I think my recipe usually calls for the brown rice for the 2 cycles. White rice is a little bit more intense, so it's more of a 1-cycle thing. So forget what I said earlier about having to put it back on for it. And I definitely saw that I lost a lot of moisture and had to redo it when I did my white rice. So yeah, you could totally do this with a white rice cooker, no problem. You don't really need any variations with it. But just make sure that you're monitoring the water. And a good thing is just to make sure that the water is about at the top of your carrots, like almost submerged, but not quite, and you'll be fine. But yeah, don't waste the seasoning, dude. It is finishing up. We are going to turn our attention back over to the potatoes. Now, these kind of got a little cooler, but they're still really, really holding their crunch. That's one of the reasons, one of the big, good reasons that you want to boil them first, because they will retain their crunch a lot better and they'll still be tasty, even if they kind of sat out for a little bit, which, you know, sometimes happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bowl. I'm going to put a nice knob of butter in there, And since they are more room temperature, I'm not going to trust them too much. I've got a like an oven safe bowl here. I'm just going to put it over the burner that I had the other stuff on and let it melt. You can also just melt butter inside the microwave, no problem, and then put it in there, but I don't want to get too melted. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to introduce them to the bowl. Alright, so I got these put in the bowl, and you can see that butter is melting up nice. Still got a little bit there, so I'm just going to leave it on this burner as I do the stuff. Again, you can just put that in the microwave and get it nice and melted, no problem, but I'm going to start adding the seasoning to it. We've got 3 things here. Seasoned salt. This one is basically like your typical Lawry's. This is more of a generic version of it. Garlic powder and thyme. Note that we haven't really used fresh garlic, and that is intentional. I don't want to overwhelm you with any kind of fresh garlic whatsoever. Looks like I have not yet opened this one, but you know what? I think I have a smaller one in here that I'm ready to use. So there we go. I have a smaller one. Let's go ahead and take that off of it. You don't need to put too much on it. Let's go ahead and give it a nice sprinkle. Take this garlic powder, give it a couple shakes. And we take the thyme and then put that in too. Once you got those in, go ahead and give it a toss in the bowl. Trying to do this while paying attention to the camera as well. And let's go ahead and get a look at these delicious seasoned potatoes. Hopefully they're not too salty. You can see the herbs on them. The garlic powder is going to give it a nice good kick. And you get that sheen from the butter. This is going to be delicious. And listen to this. Still had a bit of its crunch. Alright, now we're ready to rock and roll. So, I've got the potatoes done. The carrots are finished. And I have the chicken that looks about done. Now, you might want to use a thermometer. I can't quite remember what the actual temperature is, but I know by feel how it goes. So I'm going to open this up. I know my smoke alarm is going to go off. Let's try to ignore it. And I'm just going to go ahead and press it. And if it's nice and firm, that shit is good to come out. I'm going to go ahead and grab a rag to pull this one out. Perfect. If you can see in there, it's a lot of juice that we definitely want to keep a hold of. That stuff we're going to be putting into our carrots and also deglazing from the pan so we can keep this chicken, give it like a sauce, not only for the carrots, but also we're going to be putting the glaze over this chicken. So let's go ahead and, ooh, my tongs are dirty. I forgot to do my dishes. Take a plate, grab that chicken, pull it out, let it sit. You want it to get to nice room temperature almost. It could still be hot, but the longer it sits, A, it will continue cooking. So even if it's a little bit undercooked, it will continue cooking as it's in there. B, it lets the juices rest. So as soon as you tear into it, it doesn't just tear to shreds. But this is the good stuff we want to be focusing on right now. But before we do that, we are going to shut our oven off. And because I was a terrible cook with this camera, these potatoes are cold. I'm going to just put them back out on the tray. And as you'll notice, there's quite a bit missing because I got hungry between takes, so I started picking at them. Now, some of these will be burnt. That's just the hazard of using an oven to do this, but the bigger ones will be safe. This is off. This is still hot, though, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And as it cools down, it's going to bring those potatoes back up to temp. So right now, this beautiful morsel, I'm going to do something to this. I'm going to make sure we get all that flavor up. And to do that, I'm going to use a white wine. Why a white wine? Because it has acids in it. It kind of livens it up. And anything that's kind of like vinegary and acidic is going to automatically make your stuff taste a lot better. Plus, maple does okay with a little spritz of alcohol. I keep white wine in my fridge. I don't drink it. I basically just use it to cook. But we got this here. Introduce it to it. Just a couple glugs. Nothing too big. And then we start moving this around. And if you want to, you can go ahead and give it a taste as well. Just so you can get an idea why the hell I'm doing this. Bourbon works good too. I also sometimes keep bourbon or whiskey on hand, not to drink because I am not someone who really enjoys liquor, but I do like it to be cooked in the food. So I've got that going there, nice and flavorful. And I'm going to take that and dump it straight into my carrots. Like I said, oh wait, I'm skipping a step. I want to add a little bit of butter to it. Put my butter up. Yeah, let's get some butter going, man. Get it nice and silky. Some butter in that. Let that thicken up a little bit. The fat kind of helps it out. And once that is done, delicious, I'm going to take this and directly put it into my carrots. All that flavor is really going to bring these carrots to life. And like I said, it's not just a sauce for the carrots. We will be ladling this stuff over our chicken to make sure it's all good. So let's go ahead and give this a nice stir with the spoon. We can also give this a nice taste. Yeah, that's fucking delicious. And then we'll just go ahead and let that sit for a little bit. And when it's all done, we're going to plate it up. So I'll show you what the final product looks like in just a little bit, and it will be goddamn amazing. Alright, so when it's all plated up, it will look something like this. Like I said, put those carrots directly over that chicken, all that garlic, ginger goodness, and also the juices from the the chicken's own juices will help out the flavor of the entire dish. Put your potatoes off to the side. Probably not inside the sauce, but it doesn't matter if it gets a little saucy because they are crispy as shit. Now, I want to remind you of all the stuff that we use in this recipe. These are not just one-off things. I know there's a lot that we use, but all this stuff you should have in your pantry because it will last you for everything, because you'll probably be using this for a lot of different stuff. We're talking butter, seasoned salt, blackening spice, thyme, ginger, minced garlic, extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper, maple syrup, and the bitter white wine. I keep that in the fridge with a cork on it to kind of keep it from turning to vinegar. But by the end of it, you've got yourself a delicious meal. And I know it looked like a lot as I was doing it, but trust me, I had a lot of time just to walk around in between them. This is like a set it and forget it type of meal, and it will definitely impress anyone, including yourself, at your skills in the kitchen. So, food porn shot. Ooh. Oh, yeah.